The sun was setting on the quiet frontier moon as Eli Ward drove his old farm truck down the long dusty road. He was a simple human rancher, a man who rarely spoke more than he needed, a man who kept to himself and lived far from the nearest town. Eli was returning from the trade station, thinking about feed prices and broken fence posts, when something strange caught his eye on the side of the empty road. At first he thought it was an injured animal lying in the dirt, maybe a desert crawler or a sick herd beast. But as he slowed the truck and leaned forward, he saw movement, small and frightened. His calm eyes narrowed. "That's not an animal," he whispered. He pulled the truck closer and stepped out, the ground crunching under his heavy boots. The air smelled dry, sharp, and lonely, the kind of air that warned a man to be careful. Eli walked slowly toward the shape on the ground, ready for anything because out here, danger came in quiet forms. But when he got closer he froze. It was not one figure, but four. A woman with gray-blue alien skin lay collapsed in the sand, breathing weakly, her clothes torn and covered in dust. Behind her, 3 small children trembled, their wide bright eyes filled with fear and exhaustion. They looked thin, tired, almost starved. The youngest one hid behind the mother's arm, shaking. Eli raised his hands slightly to show he meant no harm. "Easy now," he said in a slow, soft voice. "I ain't here to hurt anyone." The alien mother reacted with fear the moment she heard him. She tried to push her children back, even though she could barely sit up. Her voice was dry and weak as she whispered something in her own language, a warning, a desperate plea for her kids to stay away from the human. Eli knelt down carefully, leaving enough space so she wouldn't panic. He pulled a water canteen from his belt and placed it on the ground between them. "You need this," he said gently. "No tricks." For a moment she didn't move, only stared with distrust, her eyes filled with old fear. Aliens like her rarely trusted humans, and humans rarely trusted aliens like her. But the children looked at the water with shaking hands. One whispered, "Mama," in a small broken voice. Slowly, with trembling fingers, the mother pulled the canteen closer and let the children drink first. Eli watched quietly, his face unreadable but his heart heavy. No traveler in the frontier lands should ever be left in such a state. Yet it was clear this family had suffered more than just a simple accident. As the mother drank the last drop, Eli finally asked, "What happened to you all?" She looked away, not answering, her jaw tight. But Eli's sharp eyes noticed bruises on her arms, marks from restraints, and scratches on her legs that looked like she had run a long distance through rough terrain. These weren't wanderers. They were escapees. Before Eli could speak again, the mother suddenly grabbed her children and whispered something urgently. Her eyes were focused on the sky. Eli followed her gaze. In the distance, 3 faint lights moved low across the horizon, glowing like watching eyes in the fading sunset. They were too controlled to be stars, too slow to be meteors, and too dangerous to ignore. Eli's expression changed, no longer calm but alert. "You're being hunted, aren't you?" he said quietly. The mother didn't answer, but her silence was enough. Her children clung to her, as if expecting those distant lights to fall upon them at any second. Eli stood, wiped the dust from his knees, and looked at the family with a hard decision forming behind his eyes. This wasn't his problem. This wasn't his fight. But he also wasn't the type of man who left people on the road to die. Not even aliens he barely understood. He walked back to his truck, opened the back door and then returned to the mother. His voice was steady, calm and firm. "Get in," he said. "You're safe now." The mother stared at him as if he had spoken something impossible. "Safe," she whispered weakly, as if the word had no meaning anymore. Eli nodded once. "Those lights'll be here soon," he said. "I ain't leaving you and your kids out here." His eyes softened just a little as he added, "Let me help." The children looked to their mother, waiting, afraid, but hoping. She hesitated, torn between fear of humans and fear of what chased her. Her hands shook, her breathing trembled. Trusting a stranger was dangerous, but staying here was death. She finally nodded, her voice breaking. "Please," she whispered. Eli quickly lifted the smallest child into the truck, guiding the others inside, helping the mother climb in last. He closed the door, ran to the driver's side and started the engine. The headlights flashed across the road just as the distant glowing lights began shifting direction. Toward them, the mother gasped softly. Eli shifted gears. "Hold on," he said. The truck roared forward, kicking dust into the air. The sky behind them slowly filled with approaching lights, cold and searching. The chase had begun. And the alien mother of 3 had no idea yet why a quiet human rancher was risking everything for strangers. But she would soon learn. Because Eli Ward was not just a rancher. He was a man with secrets. and he was ready to protect them now. The truck rattled across the rough dirt path as Eli Ward pushed the old engine harder than he usually did. The alien mother sat in the passenger seat, holding her 3 children close, her breath short and worried. The cabin lights were dim, only the dashboard giving a faint glow on their frightened faces. Eli kept his eyes on the mirrors. Every few seconds he glanced back at the sky. The distant glowing lights were still there, slowly moving, slowly searching. They were not rushing, not panicking. They were hunting with confidence. Inside the truck, the children whispered in soft, broken voices. Their language was unfamiliar, full of gentle tones and fragile sounds. The mother tried to calm them, touching their heads, whispering that they were safe. But Eli could feel her fear even without understanding her words. Fear had a weight and the truck cabin felt heavy with it. After a long silence, Eli finally spoke. "You got names?" he asked quietly. The mother hesitated before answering. Her voice was soft, shaky. "I am Lyra," she said. "These are my children, Rin, Sala, and little Oren." Eli nodded once. "Eli Ward," he replied simply. He didn't give more information than necessary. He was not a talkative man. Not because he hid things but because life had taught him the value of silence. Lyra looked at him with tired eyes. "You should not help us," she said softly. "It will bring danger to your home." Eli kept driving, never turning his head. "Too late for that," he said calmly. "Besides, kids shouldn't be chased across a desert." Lyra's eyes softened, even though exhaustion pulled at her face. "Why?" she whispered. "Why help us?" Eli didn't answer immediately. He watched the road carefully, turning the truck off the main path and toward an old mining area. "You looked like you needed help," he finally said. "And no one should die on a road like that." Lyra lowered her head, unsure how to respond to such simple kindness. She had grown up in a world where help always came with a price, where humans were often described as selfish or dangerous. But this human rancher was different. He acted without asking for anything, and that confused her more than the danger behind them. The children slowly relaxed as the truck rocked through the rocky path. The youngest boy, Oren, stared at Eli with curious eyes. He reached out a small hand and touched the sleeve of Eli's jacket. Eli didn't move away. Instead he gave a small nod as if saying, "It's all right." Suddenly a sharp beeping sound broke the moment. A sensor on the truck's dashboard flickered red. "Lyra Cityfinet." "What is that?" she asked quickly. Eli leaned forward, checking the old screen. "It's a motion detector," he said. "Something's flying above us." Lyra grabbed her children tightly. "Drone," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They found us." Eli turned off the headlights immediately, plunging the truck into darkness. Only the pale glow of the dashboard remained. He slowed the truck and guided it carefully into a narrow crevice between 2 old mining cliffs. Above them, a faint humming sound grew louder. The drone was close. Too close. Eli cut the engine. "Stay quiet," he said softly. "No matter what." The children clung to their mother, covering their mouths. Lyra's heartbeat felt like it echoed in the whole cabin. Eli listened, his breath calm, steady, trained. The sound of the drone hovered above the cliffs, scanning, humming, searching. A cold blue light passed over the ground outside, slowly sweeping left and right. For a moment it paused as if it sensed something. Lyra closed her eyes, holding her children tight enough that her hands shook. Eli reached slowly under his seat. Lyra watched him with wide eyes, thinking he was reaching for a weapon. Instead he pulled out a small metallic device, old but well-maintained. He flicked it on and a low static buzz filled the cabin. "What is that?" Lyra whispered. "Signal jammer," Eli replied. "Old model but it works." He pressed it against the dashboard. The static buzz grew deeper. Outside, the drone's light flickered for a second as if confused. Then the humming slowly drifted away. "Lyra ehalet shakile." "You saved us again," she whispered. "Eli shroted." "Just keeping you alive long enough to explain what's chasing you," he said calmly. Lyra swallowed hard. Her lips trembled. "My husband," she began slowly. "He was executed." Eli didn't flinch. "He was a political advisor in our world," she continued. "He tried to expose corruption in our leadership." Her voice broke. "They blamed him for everything and when they came for me and my children, one guard, he let us run." Eli listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable but his jaw tight. "They took our home," Lyra said. "They took our status, our identity, everything. We have nowhere to go." Eli reached for the ignition. "You do now," he said quietly. Lyra blinked in confusion. I got a ranch far from anyone, Eli added. Not fancy, but it'll keep you hidden till we figure something out. The children looked at him with hopeful eyes. Lyra hesitated. You risk yourself, she said softly. Eli started the truck. Nothing worth doing is risk-free, he replied. And I ain't leaving kids to wolves. He drove deeper into the night, the mining cliffs behind them, the wide dark frontier ahead. But the drone would report something. The hunters would soon follow. And Eli knew this was only the beginning. He kept one eye on the road and one on the sky. Because danger was still out there, searching. And now he was part of the fight. The night grew colder as Eli Ward's truck rolled across the wide open plains. There were no towns nearby, no lights, only the endless stretch of land under a dark star-filled sky. Lyra held her children close, listening to every sound, worried the drone might return. But Eli drove with steady hands, guiding the truck along hidden paths only a rancher who spent years here would know. After nearly an hour the terrain changed. Fences appeared, old wooden posts standing in long lines, casting thin shadows under the moonlight. A windmill stood tall in the distance, slowly turning with the night breeze. Eli slowed the truck and pointed forward. That's my place, he said quietly. Lyra peered through the window. The ranch looked simple but strong, built from heavy wood and reinforced metal plates. Lanterns glowed softly along the porch, giving a warm, gentle light. It was the first safe-looking place the children had seen in days. Eli parked the truck near a barn and stepped out. Lyra followed slowly, her legs weak from exhaustion. The children held her hands, their small steps uncertain. Come inside, Eli said, leading them to the house. The door creaked open, revealing a clean but humble interior. A wood-burning stove warmed the air, and the faint smell of soup lingered. Rest here, Eli said. You need it? The children rushed toward the warmth. Lyra watched them with relieved eyes. For the first time in a long while they did not look afraid. Eli went to the kitchen, pulled out a pot and filled bowls with hot soup. Eat, he said, placing the bowls on the table. The children ate quickly, almost too quickly. Lyra whispered softly to slow them down, but Eli shook his head. Let 'em eat, he said. They've been starving. While the children ate, Lyra sat across from Eli, watching him with caution mixed with gratitude. You live alone? She asked quietly. Eli nodded. Been that way a long time. Lyra hesitated before asking the next question. You knew what to do earlier. Drones, hiding the truck, the jammer. You've done these things before. Eli didn't look up. He stirred the pot slowly, thinking. It's a dangerous world, he said. Sometimes you learn things to stay alive. Lyra felt there was more behind his words. Old memories, scars invisible to the eye. But she did not push further. Everyone carried secrets, and she had no right to demand his. When the children finished eating, Eli stood and motioned for them to follow. I want to show you something, he said. He grabbed a lantern and led them outside, around the house, toward a small shed built into the ground. Lyra hesitated, unsure, but the gentle way the children followed Eli eased her worry. Eli pulled open the door and cold air rushed out. A set of stairs led downward, lit by a row of old lamps. This is my storm shelter, Eli said. But it's more than that. They went down into a wide underground room. Metal shelves lined the walls, filled with supplies. Food, water, tools, blankets, and even medical kits. Hidden air filters hummed in the background. It was clear this place wasn't built just for storms. Lyra touched one of the metal support beams. You planned for danger, she whispered. Eli nodded. This frontier moon's safe most days, but when trouble comes it hits hard. Humans and aliens alike. Rin, the oldest child, found a small stuffed animal sitting on a shelf. A dusty old toy shaped like a star beast. He picked it up with wide hopeful eyes. Eli smiled slightly. Had it since I was a kid, he said. You can keep it. Rin hugged it tightly. The moment felt warm, peaceful, almost normal. But the peace didn't last. Because danger had a way of finding those who ran from it. As they explored the shelter, a sudden metallic sound echoed faintly from above. A soft, distant thump, followed by another. Lyra froze. Her children grabbed her legs. Eli lifted the lantern and listened carefully. His jaw tightened. That's trouble, he said, voice low. They found the truck's trail faster than I thought. He hurried them upstairs, closing the shelter door quietly. Inside the house, he doused the lights and approached the window. 3 figures moved near the edge of his fence, their shapes tall and slender. Alien hunters. Their glowing armor plates reflected the moonlight. Lyra covered her mouth. Her eyes filled with panic and memories of all she lost. "No," she whispered, "please not again." Eli turned, calm but serious. "I need you and the kids back in the shelter," he said. "I'll handle this." Lyra grabbed his arm. "You can't fight them," she said, trembling. "They have weapons, tracking tech, everything." Eli's eyes, usually quiet and soft, now held a cold determination. "I've stopped worse than them," he said. "Get the kids safe." She wanted to argue to stop him, but the children's safety mattered more than anything. So she nodded, fighting tears. Eli opened a drawer, pulled out an old human rifle, worn but well cared for. He checked the chamber, then looked at Lyra. "No matter what you hear," he said softly, "don't come out." Lyra's heart throbbed painfully as she led her children back down the shelter stairs. The door closed slowly above her. The lantern flickered, and outside Eli Ward stepped into the night, facing the hunters alone. The night was silent as Eli Ward stepped outside his ranch house. The moon hung low, cold and silver, lighting the open fields with a pale glow. 3 alien hunters stood near the fence line, their armor glowing faintly, their movements sharp and confident. They were not hiding their presence. They wanted to be seen. Eli closed the door behind him quietly. His old rifle rested in his hands, the wooden stock worn from years of use. He took a slow breath, steadying himself. He was not afraid. He had seen worse than this, and he had lived through things that would break a weaker man. One of the hunters stepped forward, taller than the rest. His armor shimmered with bright lines that pulsed like veins of fire. The leader. He tilted his head as he looked at Eli. "A human," he said with disgust. "You shelter what belongs to us." Eli didn't move. He kept his rifle lowered but ready. "They don't belong to anyone," Eli said quietly. "They're a mother and her kids." The hunters laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the night like broken metal. "Aliens or humans," the leader said, "makes no difference. They ran from judgment. They must be returned." Eli's jaw tightened. "Return to what?" he asked. "To execution." The hunter's silence was answer enough. Eli shifted his stance. "Not happening," he said. "Not tonight." The leader took a threatening step forward. "You dare resist us?" A simple rancher. A man with dirt on his boots. Eli raised his rifle a little. "I'm not the type of man who lets children die," he said. His voice was low, calm, almost gentle. But behind it was a steel-hard resolve. A promise that he would not back down. The hunter's armor lit brighter. Energy charged around their arms, weapons forming from glowing plates. Eli acted first. He fired a warning shot into the ground near their feet, dust exploding upward. The hunters hissed in anger. The leader rushed forward with inhuman speed. Eli rolled to the side, using his ranch's uneven terrain as cover. He fired again, hitting the leader's shoulder. The energy flickered on the alien's armor. Not enough to stop him completely, but enough to slow him down. Eli moved fast, using the barn for cover. He pulled a lever near the wall. Old wooden beams shifted as hidden trap lines activated. The ground in front of the barn collapsed, forming a deep trench. The second hunter fell into it with a shocked cry. Eli whispered to himself. "Still works." The leader roared in anger. "You think tricks will save you?" Eli didn't answer. He sprinted toward the side yard where he had built a smoke trap years ago. He threw a small metal sphere behind him. It burst in a thick cloud of gray smoke, coating the field in darkness. The children and Lyra could hear everything from the underground shelter. Lyra held them tightly, whispering that everything would be all right. But inside, her heart was breaking. She had seen what the hunters did to those who resisted. And she knew Eli was risking his life for her and her children. Above ground, Eli moved like a shadow. Years of frontier danger had taught him how to fight without being seen. He approached the third hunter who was scanning the smoke with glowing sensors. Eli swung a heavy metal rod, smashing the sensor mask. The hunter stumbled back, sparks flying. Eli knocked him down and disarmed the glowing blade from his arm. But the leader was not done. He emerged from the smoke, furious, faster, stronger than the others. He charged at Eli and struck him with a blast of energy. Eli flew backward, hitting the dirt hard. His rifle slid far from reach. Lyra heard the impact from below. She flinched, her hands shaking. "No," she whispered. "Please no." Eli struggled to stand. Pain shot through his side, but he pushed himself up anyway. The leader approached slowly. "You protect them like they are your own," the alien hissed. "You fight for them." Eli wiped blood from his lip. "Family is not about species," he said. Family is about doing what's right. The leader lifted his weapon to strike. But a sudden blast of bright light filled the field. A warning siren echoed in the sky. Eli looked up, squinting. A human patrol ship descended, lights blazing, engines roaring. Someone had heard the emergency beacon Eli activated earlier. The leader snarled. "This is not over," he hissed. He dragged the injured hunter out of the trench, grabbed the others and retreated into the darkness as the patrol ship landed. They knew they could not fight an armed human patrol. Eli fell to one knee, breathing heavily. His vision blurred. But he smiled faintly. He had kept his promise. He stood up slowly and walked back to the house. He opened the shelter door gently. Lyra rushed out, tears filling her eyes. "Eli," she whispered, "you're hurt?" Eli managed a tired smile. "I've been hurt before," he said quietly. "But you're safe now." Lyra held his arm to steady him as the children hugged him tightly. For the first time Eli let himself lean on someone else. And in that moment, a quiet truth settled over them. They were no longer strangers. They were becoming a family. The human patrol ship landed softly on the dirt field near Eli's ranch, its bright lights filling the night with a warm white glow. Lyra shielded her children as the wind from the engines swept across the yard. Eli stood beside them, tired but still steady, his hand resting on the youngest child's shoulder to calm him. From the ship, 2 human officers stepped out, their armor marked with the frontier security symbol. They looked around the damaged ranch, the broken fences, the smoke haze, the scattered footprints, and then turned toward Eli. "Ward," one officer said, "we got your beacon? You all right?" Eli nodded slowly, even though his ribs ached with every breath. "Been worse," he said quietly. "These people need protection." The officer glanced at Lyra and her children. "They the ones being hunted?" Lyra lowered her eyes, unsure how the officers would react. Human authority was always unpredictable in her world. But Eli stepped between them and said firmly, "They're under my protection." The second officer studied Lyra's frightened face, then looked at the children clinging to her legs. After a moment he nodded. "Anyone who threatens a family on human land answers to us," he said. "You did the right thing calling us." Lyra let out a small breath of relief. It was the first time she felt truly safe since her world had collapsed. The officers checked the area, scanned for remaining threats, and confirmed the alien hunters had retreated beyond tracking range. Before leaving, one of them turned to Eli. "We'll patrol this region for the next few days," he said. "Signal us if anything happens." Eli nodded. "Thank you." With a roar of engines, the patrol ship lifted into the sky and disappeared beyond the clouds, leaving the ranch silent again. Lyra turned to Eli with tears in her eyes. "You saved us," she whispered. "You saved my children." Eli shook his head slowly. "You saved yourselves," he said quietly. "I just opened the door." He started to walk toward the house, but stumbled slightly, grabbing the porch railing for support. Lyra rushed to his side. "You're hurt," she said. "Please let me help." Inside the house, she sat him down and carefully treated his bruises with the medical supplies from the shelter. Her hands were gentle, her eyes filled with worry each time he winced. The children sat nearby, watching silently, their faces full of concern for the human who had risked everything for them. "Why do you live alone?" Sala, the middle child, asked softly. Eli looked at her for a long moment. "Some people leave," he said in a quiet voice. "And sometimes you just keep working, keep living because that's what you know." Lyra understood. Loss was something she knew well. And she realized Eli had carried his own pain long before they arrived. The next morning, the sun rose over the quiet ranch, painting the sky with warm colors. Lyra and the children stepped outside to see Eli already working, fixing the broken fence, moving fallen beams, and checking the traps he had used during the fight. He worked as if nothing had happened, as if the night before had been just another part of ranch life. Lyra approached him slowly, her eyes soft. "You don't have to fix everything alone," she said. "We can help." Eli looked at the children, their small determined faces, then at Lyra. A rare warm smile formed on his lips. "All right," he said. "Let's get to it." Together they repaired what had been broken. The children carried small pieces of wood. Lyra held beams steady while Eli nailed them into place. The ranch slowly returned to life, stronger than before. Days passed, and the hunters did not return. The patrol ships circled the region regularly, keeping watch. Lyra felt the weight of constant fear lifting from her shoulders. Her children began to laugh again. They ran through the fields, fed the animals, and slept without waking in terror. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lyra found Eli sitting on the porch, staring quietly at the sky. She sat beside him, hands folded in her lap. "You gave us a home," she said softly. "I don't know how to repay you." Eli shook his head. "You don't owe me anything," he replied. "You and the kids, you belong somewhere safe." Lyra looked at him, her eyes deep with gratitude and something warmer. "You gave us more than safety," she said in a trembling voice. "You gave us hope again." The children stepped onto the porch, playing with the old stuffed toy Eli had given them. Oren climbed onto Eli's lap without hesitation, leaning against him as if he had always belonged there. Eli placed a gentle hand on the boy's back. Rin looked up and said quietly, "Oncle Eli." Eli froze for a moment, the words hitting him harder than any hunter's strike. He swallowed, his voice deep but soft. "You kids sure about that?" They nodded eagerly. Lyra smiled with misty eyes. "You are part of our family now," she said. Eli looked out at the land he had tended alone for years, then at the family beside him. A feeling he had not known in a long time filled his heart. Not loneliness, but belonging. The night breeze blew gently across the ranch as Eli whispered, "Guess none of us are alone anymore." And under the starlit sky, on a quiet human ranch far from the world they escaped, a new beginning was born. Not from blood, not from species, but from courage, kindness, and the simple act of opening a door. A new family stood together, stronger than the past, ready for the days to come. And Eli Ward, once a quiet rancher living in silence, found his purpose again in the lives he saved. Because sometimes, the strongest bonds in the universe were the ones no one expected. And sometimes, humanity's greatest strength was a single, quiet man who chose to help.